Oh, hey, sorry, I didn't see you there. I guess I got a bit carried away with doom scrolling again. It's kind of been an issue for me lately, to be honest with y'all. In fact, it's part of the reason I haven't uploaded in so long. I mean, it's been what, like a couple of weeks, right? Oh my god! They turned this cat into a corn dog. That's hilarious! Okay, all jokes aside, I promise I didn't actually spend the last 8 months of my life mindlessly scrolling through shorts on social media. I only spent the last 7 months doing that, thank you. But once I finally broke out of the loop and put my phone down, my brain started having those things again. What do you call them? Thoughts. And as the rusted gears in my brain began turning, naturally I started thinking about how we got here as a society. Lately it feels like the internet has been taken over by endless feeds of addictive short-form video content. It started with the rise of TikTok during the pandemic, and now it's everywhere. Instagram has Reels, YouTube has Shorts, Snapchat has Spotlight, Facebook, well, okay, I still don't actually know what kind of freaky shit is going on over there, but I do know that they have a TikTok equivalent. Everyone wants a piece of that sweet TikTok pie. But I've been around long enough now to remember a time when there was a different tech company at the forefront of this new frontier. One that pioneered the entire concept of short-form video content, took the world by storm, and left every other social media site in the dust, scrambling to catch up. I'm of course referring to Vine, the iconic 6-second looping video app that served as ground zero for our modern age of online content. If you were around for the mid-2010s, a sentence that makes me feel incredibly old saying out loud, you'd know that Vine was an inescapable force in pop culture. Viral creators were going on talk shows for interviews, Vine quotes permeated through youth culture, and the app was responsible for launching the careers of pop stars like Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello, YouTubers like Drew Gooden and Curtis Connor, and even professional grifters Jake and Logan Paul. For a few short years, it seemed unstoppable, but then one random day in 2017, it stopped. And despite numerous attempts at reviving it, Vine would never be able to recapture that bottle of lightning ever again. So what happened? How did such an incredibly popular app, one that pioneered the entire current direction of internet content, completely fail and go belly up? Will it ever return? And do we even need it to? The only way to answer these questions is to go back to the beginning. So join me as we do it for the Vine and travel back to the early 2010s. The year is 2012. Gangnam Style is topping the charts, the Harlem Shake trend is in full force, and everyone is wearing fake drawn-on mustaches for some reason. But in the midst of it all, 3 generic-looking white guys were founding a company that would change the world. The original idea behind Vine was to create a camera app that would allow users to cut together clips on the fly. You'd hold your finger on the screen when you wanted to film, let go when you wanted to stop, and then you could immediately pick back up where you left off by holding down again, making it easy to film videos with a variety of shots without any editing knowledge. Unfortunately, due to the technical limitations of the time, the developers needed to cap how long the videos could be in order for the app to operate smoothly. Thus, the 6-second time limit was born, and with it, the idea to make these short videos loop endlessly like GIFs in order to add more replay value. Knowing how strict limitations can often breed creativity, the project soon morphed into a full-blown social media platform based around sharing these short looping videos with your friends. I was in middle school when Vine first released in January of 2013, and to say it was an overnight sensation would be, well, not technically true, but I'm gonna say it was anyways. In reality, it took a few months of building momentum through word of mouth before it really went mainstream, but once it hit that critical threshold, man, it just exploded. In a matter of days, it went from being something I had never heard of before to the hot new social media site that everyone I knew was posting on. By April, it had become the #1 free app on Apple's App Store, and this was back when that actually used to mean something. To truly understand the immediate appeal of Vine, you gotta understand what social media was like back then. It wasn't how it is today, where every site is trying to be a jack of all trades. Back then, everything had a niche. Instagram was for posting pictures, Twitter was for posting short thoughts, Tumblr was for posting blogs, etc, etc. And Vine slotted right in by being the social media for posting short videos. Unlike YouTube, which more so hosted highly edited long-form content, Vine pioneered the short, casual, vertical video format we know today. For the first time, it made online content creation accessible to anyone. You didn't need to know how to edit, or hell, even film more than a few seconds of runtime. All you needed was a quick idea, and you could turn that baby into a Vine within a matter of minutes. This was an incredibly novel concept back in 2013, and it led to an explosion of creative content ranging from stop-motion animations and comedy sketches to cool sports tricks and funny pet moments. This was the era of true social media. Back before all the algorithms and endless feeds, when the only things you saw when you got on, say, Instagram or Twitter were the posts from the people you were following. It was an era of creation instead of consumption. Everyone was just casual posting to an audience of friends and family, and Vine was no exception to this. I'd get on the app every day and see people I knew IRL posting their dog doing a funny trick, or montaging a day at the beach, or complaining about having to study for Friday's spelling test. I don't know. I remember making dozens and dozens of Vines with my friends that are sadly all lost to time now. Not with the hopes of going viral, but rather that our friends and classmates would see them and laugh. This early era is what I call casual Vine, a time when posts were mostly being made by average everyday people and not viral creators with huge fandoms. Of course, this era would not last very long, as by July of 2013, a brand new feature was added to the app that forever changed its trajectory and skyrocketed its popularity into the stratosphere. I'm of course referring to the ability to revine posts. Okay, let's back up here for a moment. It's pretty common knowledge that at some point, Vine was bought out by Twitter, a company that most people blame for the app's downfall and eventual closure. This is kind of true, but what most people don't realize is that Twitter bought Vine months before it even launched. It quite literally has never existed without them. These two services were usually kept pretty separate, for better or for worse. But the introduction of revining was one of the few times where this connection felt really apparent. It was pretty blatantly pulled from an already existing Twitter feature called retweeting, where if you saw a post you really vibed with, you could repost it on your profile and share it on the feeds of everyone who followed you. Man, Twitter was such a cool website. It's too bad it doesn't exist anymore. Anyways, retweeting allowed content to get shared around much more easily in a pre-algorithm world. But the reason that it worked so well on Twitter was because the barrier of entry for posting there was so low. You could be lying in bed half asleep, have a thought pop into your noggin, and post it to the internet 30 seconds later before conking out. So it was normal for people to post multiple tweets a day. This led to a healthy balance of original and shared posts on the feed, since both took similar levels of effort. But when Vine borrowed this concept, it completely changed the ecosystem of how everything worked there. Posting to Vine had a lot higher of an entry barrier than Twitter. You had to actually get up off your ass and film something out in the real world. Since revining comparatively only took the effort of tapping a button, everyone just started doing that instead. In my experience, at least, getting on Vine went from scrolling through a couple of posts from my friends every day to scrolling through dozens and dozens of reposts with hardly anything original being made by the people I knew anymore. It was kind of a bummer, honestly. This was around the time that I stopped using the Vine app, but make no mistake, it was by no means the end of me watching Vines. Since videos could now get shared around much faster than before and reach an even wider audience, the content being produced there was starting to go viral enough to transcend the app altogether and bleed over onto the rest of the internet. You no longer needed Vine to watch Vines. There were endless compilations of the best ones on YouTube, and they would regularly go viral on Twitter since, you could just directly post them there. This is the era that everyone remembers Vine for, just viral hit after viral hit. What's 9 plus 10? Look at all of those chickens, road work ahead, I'm in me mom's car, free shavakadu, welcome to Chili's. Genuinely, I could be here all day just listing listing off Vine quotes that still echo through our culture to this very day. Or maybe I just remember them because I'm old and out of touch now. I don't know, kill me. By 2015, Vine had become a major pillar of pop culture. Doing it for the Vine was all the rage, and the big creators on there were getting just as famous as the ones from YouTube. They were even going on national news programs and talk shows for interviews. There were a few years there where The Ellen Show specifically was pulling half its damn guests from Vine. Hell, the guy who sent Damn Daniel back at it again with the white Vans was gifted a lifetime supply of Vans from Ellen and got to appear in a Weezer music video. Does anyone under 25 even know Damn Daniel? Do I need to be put in a nursing home? Be honest. You also had the opposite effect where already mainstream celebrities were trying to cash in on Vine. Drake and Josh star Josh Peck and Panic! At the Disco frontman Brendan Urie are two prime examples of this. There was a brief time where they were both more known for being Viners than actors and musicians. That's how much pull this damn app had. Of course, all good things eventually come to an end. And for Vine, that end came about as suddenly as a bullet to the head. On October 27th, 2016, it was announced that Vine would be shutting down operations at the end of the year. This came as a shock to everyone since the scene was still operating at the peak of its popularity. But looking at the broader picture, it's pretty clear why this happened. While the concept of Vine was just as popular as ever, the app itself had long since stagnated, as by this point, you could experience the best posts on any other social media platform. It was way more common for Vines to go viral on Twitter than on the Vine app itself, and pretty much every other social media site was adding in their own version of Vine anyways. Perhaps the biggest competitor was Instagram, who in the summer of 2013 added Instagram Videos, a precursor to what would eventually become Instagram Reels. This was a direct attempt to steal Vine's thunder, and to add insult to injury, the videos could be a whopping 15 seconds long. I know, crazy shit. Now, nobody really took this seriously as a platform. It was mostly just a dumping ground for Vine re-uploads in the same way that Instagram Reels is a dumping ground for TikToks today. Still, it did have the effect of keeping users on their platform instead of switching over to the Vine app. There was also a little competitor known as Musical.ly that launched in 2014 and was similarly doing the Vine but longer thing to great success. You might not recognize that name today, but you definitely know the app it rebranded as just a few years later, TikTok. Yeah, Vine was cooked. Basically, every other social media site was iterating on the original concept of Vine, but with better monetization, more in-app editing options, and less creative restrictions. It was clear that short-form content was evolving past the whole 6-second endless loop gimmick. Vine tried to combat this in mid-2016 by raising their upload limit to about 2.5 minutes. But ironically, that ended up being the final nail in the coffin. As pointless as the 6-second time limit had become, it was really the only unique thing Vine had left to distinguish itself from its competitors. On top of that, most of the biggest creators were either jumping ship to YouTube and Instagram or breaking into Hollywood due to Vine's lack of monetization options, leading to a sort of talent drain on the site. On January 17th, 2017, Vine's servers officially shut down, turning the app into nothing more than a camera tool you could use to continue making Vines for other platforms. That didn't really happen, of course, because after a few months, the internet just kind of moved on. The Vine concept had already evolved into what we think of as shorts or reels today, and there were certainly better options to make them with than the Vine camera app. For a few years after the shutdown, Twitter would at least maintain a full archive of everything once uploaded to the site. But in 2019, they burned the whole thing down to the ground for, no reason whatsoever. Great. Meaning that any Vines not saved elsewhere became lost media. Granted, all of the important ones are saved thanks to the thousands and thousands of YouTube compilations, but where are mine at, damn it? Were mine not good enough for y'all? This wouldn't be the end of Vine though, as it never has stopped trying to claw its way back into the spotlight. In early 2018, a sequel app called V2 was independently announced by Vine's co-creator Dom Hoffman, which actually garnered a considerable amount of hype around it at the time. Vine still carried a lot of cultural weight back then, and people were already feeling nostalgic for it. I remember being at track practice in college talking about this with my teammates, and we were all super pumped, you know, just planning all of the viral Vines we would film together once it finally launched. So of course, in May, they announced that it would not be launching. God damn it. Oh, okay, it's fine. It's okay, because in November, they re-announced it as an app called Byte, and gave us an actual release date for spring of 2019. Surely this time it will actually launch? Right? Yeah, no. So after that announcement, we got radio silence for over a year until the 2020 pandemic, when it finally soft launched to the cheers of like tens of people, I would imagine. I genuinely cannot comprehend how they dropped the ball this hard, but by now, the moment had passed. The thing is that in those 2 years, TikTok had already risen to fame and taken the throne of short-form content that Vine had once held. Nobody wanted to admit it at the time because, you know, it was cringe or whatever, but TikTok really was the Vine 2 we had all been waiting for. The fact that the actual Vine 2 flopped so hard in comparison is proof of this. Byte would never really get off the ground running, and in 2021, it would be bought out by a company called Clash and rebranded with that same name. Things did not improve though. If anything, downloads dropped even lower, which, to be clear, we were already batting zero here. To combat this, the geniuses over at Clash decided to rebrand the app again. Sure, it didn't work the first 2 times, but hey, why not go for 3 and strike out? Clash then became Huddles later that year, and then Huddles fully shut down in 2023 because well, nobody cared about it. I'm sure that for 90% of you watching, the last time you even heard of this app was when it was still being teased as V2 back in 2018. However, even this isn't the end of the story. Literally just a few months ago, in November of 2025, former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey announced another Vine revamp called Divine, which would abide by the original 6-second looping format and emphasize human-made content in the age of AI. They even promised to restore hundreds of thousands of lost Vines from the old archive. 10 years ago, this would have broken the internet, so to speak. But nowadays, genuinely nobody gives a fuck, and why would they? It's been 10 years since Vine ended, and the culture has just moved on. All of the creative talent are on other platforms now that offer more features and actual monetization, if you can believe it. In fact, Divine already came out weeks ago, and I guarantee that for most of you, this is the first time you're actually hearing about it. I tried downloading it myself for this video, but you need an invite code to join, so fuck that, I guess. In its prime, Vine was a cultural force to be reckoned with, one that pioneered online video for the smartphone age and launched the careers of many creators and celebrities we know today. Unfortunately, it was just a bit too gimmicky to maintain a long shelf life. It was a novel concept for a couple of years, but once the competitors started coming in and expanding upon the idea with more tools and less limitations, the clock on Vine's relevancy already began ticking down. Tick-tocking down, if you will. I'm so fucking funny. A lot of people blame Twitter for the app's downfall, and don't get me wrong, they certainly didn't do much to help, but I really feel like this was inevitable. The concept of Vine was always more popular than the app itself, and once things got to a point where you could watch Vines anywhere on the internet and make them with any other platform, its fate was more or less sealed. It's difficult to imagine what Vine would even look like today if it hadn't shut down. There's just nothing it was offering that wouldn't be fulfilled by every other social media. The 6-second looping format has become outdated, and any attempt to evolve it would have just resulted in them becoming indistinguishable from their competitors, which we already saw happening towards the end anyways. That said, while Vine may be gone, it certainly has not been forgotten. In fact, it may be the most relevant dead social media of all time, with a cultural presence that still feels more alive today than actual active sites like Tumblr or MySpace. The simplicity of it all was perfect for the less experienced content creators of 2013, and while it may not have lasted very long, it accomplished so much in such a short time. In essence, Vine is the nirvana of social media. It blew up overnight, changed the entire industry, spawned a bunch of copycats, and then killed itself. Wow, that was a real sentence I just wrote, wasn't it? Jesus Christ. Yeah, you know, maybe I should just quit while I'm ahead and go back to doom scrolling for a living. So, if you don't mind, I'll see you guys next time, or maybe never again. I don't know. See ya. Bliss.